Good afternoon. Welcome to this Placemaking for Town Centres webinar. My name's Jen Heal. I'm the Deputy Chief Executive of the Design Commission for Wales. If you have been to previous webinars, you'll know how this works. But just to remind you that this is part of a series that we've been doing since September. So there's a bit of a back catalogue that you can go back and watch on our YouTube channel if you wish to. So some of the last few have been placemaking for children in town centres, placemaking approach to green infrastructure in town centres, and share and repair in town centres. And as I say, if you go to the DCFW YouTube channel, you can rewatch those. After today's webinar, we're going to take a short break over the summer. So we'll have a bit of time off, but we have more topics lined up and we'll be back in the autumn with further sessions. So today's session, we're looking at a very important topic for town centres, how people get to and move around their town centres. Obviously, this is critical to the life of our towns, but it can also be a very divisive issue. How much space, how much money, how much focus do we give to vehicles versus walking and wheeling? It's a hot topic in many towns, and I know many of those who are currently preparing placemaking plans or implementing placemaking plans are looking at ways to promote pedestrian priority. But there can also be some resistance to that. It can be an area of debate. So it's helpful to have some evidence to hand for such debates. And this is where the Pedestrian Pound report comes in, which we're going to be hearing about today. So Living Streets have been building a body of evidence and examples on this topic for the last 12 or so years. And the latest edition of the Pedestrian Pound report broadens the evidence base for improved walking environments and the benefits this will bring. So I'm very pleased to be joined by Ruth Billingham today, who is from Living Streets and is going to take us through the highlights of the report. I've given her a short amount of time to do that, so she'll cover those highlights. And if you want to know more, do please go and look at the report or ask any questions. And then after that, we're going to hop across the border, and Claire Evans from Shropshire Council will be sharing some examples and lessons learnt for putting some of these things into practice. As always, please do pop your questions in the Q&A or the chat. I'll pick those up at the end after the two speakers have given their presentations and put those to the speakers. But it'd be great to hear from you, either a question or a comment or an observation to get some discussion going there. So I will stop sharing my slides and ask Ruth to come in with hers. Oh, there we go. Perfect. And Ruth, it's over to you. Thank you very much.
Great. So I assume you can see the slides?
Yep.
Fab. So good afternoon. I'm Ruth Billingham from Living Streets. Firstly, I wanted to apologise on behalf of our CEO, Kat Woodhead, who would have loved to have joined you today, but wasn't able to make it. So I'm going to do my best to kind of deputise for her and answer your questions as best as I can. Okay, so for those of you who don't know us, Living Streets is the charity for everyday walking. We've got a long, rich history coming up to our centenary in 2029 of making streets better for walking. And today we work towards three key outcomes: that people choose to walk more, that streets are better for walking, and across all walks of life. So we believe that walking and wheeling should be for everybody. And you may hear me reference wheeling today, in which case I mean those people in wheelchairs or using mobility aids. So on to the Pedestrian Pound. We first published the Pedestrian Pound in 2013 and did a second edition in 2018. It's become sort of the go-to document to help decision makers and campaigners make the economic case for investing in better high streets for walking. The latest edition was launched at the end of 2024 and was funded by Paths for All, who some of you may now know are now Walking Scotland, the Rhys Jeffreys Fund, the Foundation for Integrated Transport, and the Welsh Government. And the research was undertaken for us by the Transport for Quality of Life. Now in its third edition, the Pedestrian Pound is a review of international academic and grey literature for evidence of the impact of public realm improvements on business performance, the importance of public realm improvements for regeneration, and the influence of public realm improvements on business and consumer satisfaction. So the context to our third edition of the Pedestrian Pound sees high streets that have been under pressure for many years, as you'll all know. At the end of last year, British high streets had vacancy rates of nearly 1 in 7, and I believe in Wales that's around 1 in 6. The trend accelerated with the onset of COVID lockdowns, obviously in 2020. And in 2017, 77% of adults bought goods or services online compared to 53% in 2008. And in November 2023, around 30% of all shopping did take place online. So the role and future of high streets as shopping destinations is fundamentally changed and still evolving, but they're still destinations where people meet and gather. They're places that matter to their communities. It's within this broader value of walkable high streets that we sought to capture in the report. So the third edition of the report centres on 3 key themes that highlight the transformative power of walkable environments. So these broadly relate to the economy, community, and healthier people and environments. So what does the report tell us? For us at Living Streets, there were 3 key themes that really emerged. Pedestrians equals pounds. So following on from our 2013 and 2018 editions, the economic evidence is that pedestrian footfall does strengthen local economies. The second theme is around the importance of communities and that in-person connections really do matter. And the third theme is that walkable places can help save money in the long run. So the first theme is that pedestrian footfall strengthens local economies, the idea that pedestrians equals pounds. This is perhaps not surprising when you consider that 44% of people in Scotland walk into their local shops daily or even several times a week. There's a wealth of national and international evidence showing that those who walk or wheel to shops spend more money. Investment in public realm that improve the walkability and attractiveness of an area make it more likely that people will wander, linger and meet friends, which transforms sort of a utilitarian shopping trip into more of an experience. So, for example, shops in pedestrianised areas in 14 cities across Spain were shown to have generated higher sales volumes compared to those in non-pedestrianised areas. Walkable places are also worth more. A recently published study from the US suggests that homes and commercial space in the most walkable neighbourhoods sell for around 35 to 45% more than those in car-dependent suburban locations. And a comparison of 5 improved and 5 unimproved streets across London found a reduction in retail vacancies of 17% across 5 streets, which had received improved focus on improving the pedestrian accessibility relative to the 5 streets which had not had any improvements. The analysis also showed an uplift in office and retail rental values equivalent to 4% and 7.5% respectively, but there was negligible impact on residential values, so it can counter the concerns over gentrification. But to really tell a story behind some of these facts, we felt we needed case studies this time around. So we're pleased to have 12 new in-depth case studies from across England, Scotland and Wales, which were selected with the help of a typology of public realm improvements to showcase a diversity of interventions, budgets and locations from city centres to market towns across the UK. So one of those was transforming a car-dominated side road into a space for a pop-up market in upland Swansea, which has provided a massive boost to trade for local producers. It was started in 2013 and now the market is financially self-sufficient, attracting up to 3,000 visitors on a good day. The market deliberately doesn't have a refreshment stand, and some adjacent local businesses offer special market day deals, both of which support the vitality of local cafes and shops. And as well as local produce, the market provides live music and poetry and a meeting point for the community, including the local Living Streets group. Surveys found that 67% of visitors were specifically attracted by the market, and a fifth of people also spent money in the surrounding businesses. A large majority thought the market had given them a more positive view of the uplands area, and anecdotally, many people originally attracted by the market now also shop in the uplands area on non-market days. So the second theme to emerge from the third edition of the Pedestrian Pound is that in-person community connections really matter. The report explores the impact of walkable places on the quality of social interactions and on equality, diversity and belonging. Two of the standout facts were that town centre businesses can have a 20% greater profit when there is a bank and post office present, and local investment pays off. It's estimated that 56p of every £1 community businesses spend stays within that local economy. So another case study that looks at accessibility and involving the community was the new bus station in Cardiff, which was designed to be accessible to as many different types of people as possible, and to ensure they would be able to seamlessly continue their journey into the city centre by foot or on wheels, thereby supporting the fifth of Welsh people who are actually disabled. Cardiff Council's Access Focus Group was asked to feed into a diversity impact assessment and the Interchange's initial design process. An engagement group of around 65 people, which included representatives of disability and older people's charities, the LGBTQ+ community, and walking groups, were consulted regularly throughout the design process. Early and ongoing engagement with as many different types of people as possible with varying disabilities or other needs meant that a wide variety of voices were able to ask for the facilities they needed and the support they require when travelling. The third theme to emerge is that walkable places can generate economic savings through healthier people and the environment. So a few examples that came out of the report are: in Scotland alone, the number of deaths averted by walking to work is estimated to be worth around 600 million a year. And obviously, a lot of you will know about the introduction of the default 20-mile-an-hour speed limit in Wales, which is estimated to have saved the National Health Service here just over 92 million in the first year, which is nearly 3 times higher than the actual implementation cost. The health economic benefit from increased walking and cycling trips following closure of a residential street to through traffic in Hounslow, London, was estimated at approximately 500,000 over 20 years, which again was 50 times higher than the cost of the scheme itself. So hopefully you'll see that these stats demonstrate the significant health and economic benefits of creating walkable environments, from reducing mortality rates and healthcare costs to preventing falls among older adults. Investment in pedestrian-friendly infrastructure can lead to substantial savings for public health systems. So my final case study for today is improvements to the public realm in the area of the Cross, near the centre of the small market town of Caldicot in South Wales, which has created an attractive area of car-free spaces for outdoor events, markets and dining, reducing street clutter. They've added trees, planting and rain gardens, new seating and more accessible bus stops, so that pedestrians are really given priority across, pedestrians are also given priority across the nearby zebra crossing. Curbs, which are detectable by guide dogs, tactile paving and high contrast surfaces, are all helping people with visual impairments to move safely through the space. And a subsequent scheme has created a safe pedestrian route all the way to a country park and the nearby Norman Castle. And since this area, the Cross, has reopened, traffic speeds along the adjacent road have reduced, with a mean speed through the junction now of less than 20 miles an hour. The public realm improvements have motivated surrounding businesses to renovate their buildings and improve frontages using a design toolkit to create a unified appearance for the town centre, and that's been with funding from the Welsh Government's Transforming Towns programme. So monetised forecast and evaluation of public realm interventions do, as you'll know, remain quite rare. And so this is why we're very pleased that alongside the extensive literature review in the Pedestrian Pound, we've also prepared an evaluation briefing. So this provides an overview of appraisal methods that are typically used in developing a business case for schemes before they are implemented, and evaluation methods typically used to quantify the impacts of schemes after they had been implemented. Its aim is to help local authorities and others gather better evidence with signposting to relevant tools and methods, and identify opportunities to improve evaluation of the public realm. We're also really proud that this edition of the Pedestrian Pounds has 3 country annexes for the first time. So obviously one for England, Scotland and Wales. These are for everyone who wants to understand the context and key policies and mechanisms for delivery of public realm and walking improvements in each of the nations. So what does the future hold? The report highlights some future trends and makes recommendations for governments and local authorities. Obviously, you can read it for yourself to find out more about those, but there are some sort of Living Streets highlights that we've pulled out. Economic trends in the future that could influence, you know, as we said at the beginning, e-commerce is growing, but we feel that it will complement rather than replace all physical retail. There's a trend towards the experience economy and the maker economy, and business improvement districts are likely to continue growing, though preferably they will be more community focused. Social trends that could influence walkability. The decline in trips to town centres could be offset by more residential development in town and city centres, but it must be properly planned and regulated. One case study of over 500 permitted development schemes found numerous problems, including lower housing quality and dwellings created in unsuitable neighbourhoods, such as business parks and industrial estates. Technological trends that could influence walkability in the future. Obviously, new technologies can reduce car use, but can also create conflict with people walking and wheeling, which is something that we sort of really want to make sure doesn't happen. For example, you know, replacement of the UK fleet of around 35 million cars with electric vehicles would significantly increase the demand for home charging and potentially occupation of the footway space on pavements. Planning trends that could influence walkability. The planning principle of a 15-minute city or 20-minute neighbourhood would encourage walking and improve quality of life for residents. But we believe that listening to community viewpoints is essential to their successful implementation. So thank you. That's the end of my presentation around our Pedestrian Pound report. There's a QR code on the screen which will take you directly to the report itself, where you'll find a nice summary document if you haven't got too much time, and obviously the longer, more in-depth report, as well as the evaluation briefing. So thank you.
Great, thank you very much, Ruth. That was really helpful overview of the document and the research that's gone in behind it. Somebody in the chat was just asking where they can read or get access to the 12 case studies. Presumably that's in the main document. Perhaps whilst Claire's doing her presentation, you could drop a link into that so that people can get to it if they didn't sort of get the QR code. That would be really helpful. Thank you. Excellent. That's really good, and you know, lots in there around the evidence for improving walking and wheeling, and why it matters not just in monetary terms, but for health and well-being purposes. And I think you know, our town centres can't compete on convenience necessarily of some other retail locations, but there's a lot in there that they can do around the experience and the quality of life and interaction with other people, which having a good pedestrian environment really helps to facilitate. So I would imagine quite a lot of us on this call are quite signed up to those principles and keen to implement them. And the question then becomes how, and how do we go about that? Where are some examples? And this is where Claire comes in. Claire is Senior Programme Officer in the Economic Growth and Regeneration team at Shropshire Council. And she's going to share some of her experience of collaborative working in this area. By no means covering everything that you could do, but just sharing some examples and some lessons learnt along the way of initiating some activities in this area. So Claire, I will pass over to you. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just share my slides, and hang on, that should be working now. Yeah, that's it. So as introduced, I'm following on with Ruth, a little bit about what we've done and some lessons learnt. I work for a local authority, but I'm here today representing the partnership, which is a partnership of Shropshire Council as the local authority, Shrewsbury Town Council as our sort of local council, and Shrewsbury Business Improvement District. So we do have a bid operating in the town centre, representing about 500 businesses, but this is about the work that we do as partnership. So I've put some links there to our Big Town Plan website and Shrewsbury Moves, which is our movement brand for what we're planning to do. So I'm just going to start with where Shrewsbury is. We are just over the border, the furthest west of the Midlands counties, and we are, A5 into up into Holyhead, up into Cheshire, and down to Hereford. So that just sets the context of sort of where little old Shrewsbury, or Shrewsbury is, as you might know it, but I shall refer to it as Shrewsbury as a local. So it's the good, the bad and the ugly. Placemaking and pedestrians. A lot of what we've done has been to encourage cycling. By nature then means that the places that, or the things that are used it's not cars. So we also know that has a, impact for pedestrians as well. And obviously any kind of conflicts with cyclists is a keen thing we need to be aware of. But as it stands at the moment, I'm just going to go run through a few things that we've done. I'm going to start straight off with the key takeaways. I will come back to them. But just if you just sort of take nothing else from this, haters are going to hate. It is one of those things. Sometimes they'll be in the same organisation as you. Sometimes they won't be. Sometimes they'll be residents. I've used my car. I have every right to drive my car into the town centre and park it where I want to, and then get back in it and leave. So we started, good PR, a funky brand, and to get it out there. Any opportunity that we have to sort of sing the praises of a movement strategy, we'll do it. And, it's getting that message out. We do have, I spoke a little bit about the Big Town Plan partnership. We do have a proper partnership agreement. We all pay into it each year. It gives us match funding for a number of things, and obviously just the PR and sort of different things that we're using. We have a creative use of fundings and awards. We will we'll look at where we can get funding from. Shrewsbury isn't part of the Transforming Town programme that was created by DHCLG. I think it still is. But they did have a number of where they were sort of giving, if you like, multi-million pounds to towns to do things. We weren't successful in ours, so we don't have those sort of multi-million pound investments. We'd like to get them. So if there is anyone here who has any influence on that, please get in touch. But we're trying to do what we can with what we can. Please take advantage of what happened in COVID. That sounds quite bizarre statement, but we had our high street pedestrianised because of the social distancing, and it was all, relatively easy to do. We're going to do that. We're going to reduce this. And we then decided after we would keep it. So experimental traffic orders, ETROs, whatever, they are our friends. And actually you can do quite a lot with that without necessarily the sort of infrastructure. So that's sort of something to think about. You haven't got to repave an area and, oh my Lord, there's curbs. that doesn't seem to matter to the pedestrians walking up and down our high street at the weekend. I've also put there about the value of TELRAM, not to promote TELRAM, but that's who we use, or movement counters. Certainly at the early stages, we've made a real effort to include them in any sort of funding bids that we've had, because what we actually do is take the measurements at the start. So we can see how many cars, how many pedestrians, how many cyclists are in an area we're looking to do an intervention in. And then we can obviously show the intervention. So I think where Ruth had mentioned about evaluation and evaluation methods, that to me is a sort of key takeaway. Find out what you've got first. And then it's very easy, if you like, in some ways to show how footfall has increased or how cars have reduced. And like I say, haters are going to hate. It's just the nature of the work. So I think, resilience is quite important. You can't do it for free, sorry, but you can't. We have a funded partnership, we have a vision, we have a plan, we have a big town plan. We also have a Shrewsbury movement and public space strategy. We've gone for public space over public realm because, lots of people you ask don't know what public realm actually means. We went with public space because it made it a bit more easy for people to understand. I asked my mum, the good bench, what's public realm? I don't know. Well, it's public space. Well, you didn't say that. So, even down to sort of some of the language, we inform, we engage, we consult, and then we inform, we engage and consult, and then we do a bit more. So that has been a massive part of the work that we've done as a partnership. And we consult as a partnership. We don't consult as a local authority or the bid. It's all done under the sort of umbrella brand, which we have found to be really useful and trusted a little bit more by our residents as well. We have been very successful with UK SPF, UK Shared Prosperity Funding, particularly communities and place theme. So if your area has that, really start thinking about how you can apply to some of that funding. And that again goes back to our match. We've had quite a lot of capital funding. I think it's about 700,000, and we've needed to match fund some of that, and having that sort of funded partnership has helped. But there is community infrastructure levy funding. Ask for stuff in planning approvals. If you don't ask, you don't get. Council tender awards, what is there that, you could make use of for some of the things that you need to do. Enter awards, make grant applications, get busy. And, we won a Let's Celebrate Pounds award last year, and we had £15,000 grant. We've kind of used that. It is a little bit of the sort of, loaves and fishes. We keep using it for lots of other things, but it's our money. It's for us to do a good community project. Be an early adopter yourself. I'm going to talk a little bit about our e-bikes. I'm on that scheme. I pay my £10 direct debit. And, I then have the sort of customer, I'm on the same sort of customer journey as the other 239 people who have a bike as well. And also importantly, you need to change behaviours and not just build infrastructures. This isn't just about pedestrianising. This isn't just about building a cycle lane. There's an awful lot more that you need to sort of be aware of as well. It's the age-old thing of, I'll just hop in my car, just get in my car. It's all about, changing how people sort of view how they come into the town centre. It does take us about 40 minutes to do the 3 miles into the town centre. And, the old adage, we are traffic. You can't complain about the traffic if you're sat in your car in it. So that's kind of where we are. This is the interventions. These are some of the schemes that we've done. We've got some, if you like, little moves and some big moves. We've got a movement strategy. It's been adopted by council as a material consideration in planning terms. It will feed into our local transport plan, local plan, and all of those sorts of policy sort of links that it needs to. But some of these are the like sort of smaller moves that feel quite achievable. And these I'm just going to sort of very quickly for the sort of remaining 8 or 9 minutes, I think I have back. I have available just to sort of run through some of the things that we've done. We have a e-bike scheme. We went out to full tender and we worked with a company called Hurricane, and it's a subscription model. We initially started and bid for a Boris bike type scheme, thinking that, you know, well, people will just use them and then drop them back. And then obviously public feedback was they don't want them, you know, we're 90% surrounded by a river. They don't want them in the river. They don't want them clogging up the streets, you know. So we were like, okay, what are we going to do? Give the public what they want, sort of thing. And we ended up on a subscription scheme. So they are kept at their homes for the sole use. They are delivered to their homes, and it's yours for the 12 months, probably more, but at the minute it's a 12-month scheme. They do a lot on social prescribing, but we've gone through, you know, we want to reduce the number of cars coming into the town centre and getting people who, if you like, live within that sort of sweet spot of between sort of 2 and 5 miles of the town centre to actually be cycling in. So we've had great feedback, 194 bikes actually, and it's in kilometres, 9,200 cycled. And we have e-bike training as well. So the scheme's been active since about the end of January. We had a £154,000 capital investment, 70% funded. The chaps on the right are from Hurricane. Far end is the managing director, Paul. And we very much worked with them as a partnership. They sort of run the scheme, but we did all of the expressions of interest, getting, you know, all the press out. And we were a bit like, oh, we started with 120 bikes, we then doubled it. And oh, do you think people will want them? Do you think that people will want them? And within 2 weeks, well, in 2 weeks, we had 560 applications for the e-bikes. So the one thing I would say is when people say, oh, nobody wants to cycle around our town, you know, why are we putting in cycle lanes and things like that? You actually just need to give them the opportunity. And we left it open on the premise that we might try and get some more money. And we're currently at about 900. So we've kept it open because we've obviously then got that evidence of demand. So that's kind of how we worked it. That's me on my bike in the winter, but we've done cycle training, and you know we're getting people out on the bike, and we had our own brand, so we had them branded up as ours as well. Hurricane do them separately, and I think up in Bradford they were all just a black bike, but of course we wanted our own funky brand out there. It's really important, you know, and for others to see people riding around on these bikes. We then have some e-cargo bikes as part of the UK SPF funding, 7 different bikes. There's a picture of me actually riding it. It was big. You can't see the front wheel, but we managed it, and we offered those out to town centre businesses for a 12-month trial. And they've got a tracker in, and they've also got, and I cannot think what the name of it is, but it's a route mapper, and it shows them how they're going around the town, what they're using, you know, are they able to sort of use the road network as it is now? Obviously walking is quite different, and cycling, and you know I shouldn't probably cycle the wrong way up a one-way street, but sometimes I do, because it's but again, it's how, you know we need to change sort of some of the layout as well, and this is all sort of data and evidence for us to do that. We've got some secure cycle pods. Again, we work with Falco, who do these. We went out to open tender, as is a requirement of all of the funding, and we've got a pay-as-you-go model, and also subscription, where people can, if you like, secure a space in one of these. They have to take 6 bikes for £5 a month. So quite cheap, but it's really to get, you know, people who are perhaps live in flats and don't have storage for bikes. It's for people, you know, people who have a £3,000 bike. People do, if not more. They've been telling us they're not coming into town because it doesn't feel safe to leave the bike. So again, it's just another sort of, if you like, incentive we've given to people to encourage them out of their cars. We did a river shuttle. Again, as I mentioned, I think I mentioned quickly, 90% of our town is surrounded by the river. We had some capital monies. We got men in sheds. I think everyone probably has a men in sheds now, don't they? To sort of put the infrastructure in on our showground. It then allows us sort of shuttle across the town, and it's not going to be used all the time, but you know, it took 600 trips over one weekend, which effectively means there's 300 cars that haven't gone into the town centre that day. And I think the whole thing cost us about £28,000. They then work with a little provider anyway to do that. We ordered some parklets, and I think there's about 4 or 5 just around the town, just adding, if you like, extra space into areas, you know, where there are already some. There's no planning permission required. They are used all year round, and they cost about 15k each. And again, it's a nice little implement. It arrives on the back of a trailer, and it's, you know, put down on, not necessarily in the road, but on sort of land. And I think that was town council land, so it was just a very quick phone call. Can we put it there? Yeah, that's our land. Put it there. So again, you know, a lot of what we're doing isn't necessarily, how do I say it, rocket science, but it's pushing the boundaries a little bit. And change behaviour. You know, this is the whole, how do you get people out of their cars? We had a movement festival in the middle of March. We had a big sort of evening launch event where we had some of the great and the good, and we had I can't think of her name now, Melissa, who works and lives in the Netherlands. She came over. She was a keynote speaker. We had our MP. We had PGA. We had Phil Jones, who put the strategy together for us, or with us, I should say. And then we had a number of about 6 or 7 different speakers come during the day. And I actually think, Ruth, that's a Living Streets thing on that photo. So again, you know, we had like Living Streets come and various other people, and to talk about, you know, the importance of what we were doing. And then we had a town square. We have our town square, which is next to our pedestrian area. And we had a moves festival. We used the whole thing. We had hula hooping. We had a Ferris wheel. It was all just about getting different types of people moving. And footfall was 26% up on the same day. And Sunday was the highest footfall since the camera was installed. And again, you know, we've got that evidence there, and what can't speak can't lie, if you like. So next things, we are doing more in new spaces and new places project. This is historic. You know, we've got a beautiful abbey, but you know, we've got taxi ranks, loading bays, car parking, and we've worked with the businesses. We've bid for some money. We were successful in that, so that's our sort of next job, along with some of these big moves, if you like, loops, pedestrianisation of the town centre, loops, so that, you know, it's not very easy to drive through town. Again, that will be an awful lot more of consultation. We've got about 2,500 people living in the town centre. They were up in arms, you know, you can't do this to us. And we're like, well, there'll be more to it than us just saying, you know, you can't drive in and out. But it links back to the fact that through all of this lies the requirement to do a lot of consultation, engagement, and informing people. So that's me. I go back to those sort of key takeaways, and you know, try and surround yourself with people who get it, because it can be quite lonely. And I'm sort of, I guess I'm speaking from a sort of local authority thing, because a lot of this and the value of place and placemaking, whilst it's not new, and we all know, and you and like we've said about the, you know, the value of what we're doing, it's not traditionally perhaps what we've done in local authorities. So again, I just wanted you to kind of, you know, you're not on your own. And there are, you know, and I find, you know, well, they've done that here, they did that here, well, it worked in wherever, or Dublin, you know, loops, and well, Dublin have just introduced theirs. Oh, did it work? Yeah, it seemed to have worked. And people are, oh, okay then. Whereas I think if you're, sorry, that's me, saying me, my time's up, so apologies. I don't know why that's, sorry, I apologise, that's not, sorry, I don't know why that's not weird. I'm so sorry, that's not very good, is it? So yeah, so that's me, that's my presentation, and I hope that gives you a little bit of an idea of sort of what we've been doing over the last 18 months to 2 years. So I'll stop sharing
Brilliant.
that if I
Yeah, thanks, Claire. Thank you. That's really
but I'll
helpful.
happily go back onto any slides if anyone goes, well, what did you do on that one? I can absolutely start sharing again if people want.
Great, thanks. Really helpful to get a flavour of what you've been up to and some of the sort of tips that you've accumulated along the way for how to go about that. I think you know, there's a lot to take away from that, but the idea that you're sort of building the demand before you're going into the big sort of expenditure projects was key for me. And I think we've been talking about that quite a lot with placemaking, is how do you drive up the demand for the place and the way of doing things.
And also, you know, it's very difficult to sell a £10 million or a 200 and whatever Northwest, you know, Relief Road sort of thing. And it takes years. And we're like, we'll tender for a scheme and we'll do it in 3 months. And then people are seeing bikes round and they're seeing the brand and they kind of go, oh, that's what they're trying to do. So, and again, it's a lot of it is a test and learn. Do you know what I mean? It's, you know, those cycle pods, great, but we have put one in the wrong location and we've got to get it moved. So, you know, so that's a negative. Everyone else loves it, but you know, you have got to be responsive as well and not just say, well, we've done it, like it or lump it. You kind of have to go, or you know, you get the feedback and you're honest as well. You know, I drive around in the bike, I drive around on it, you know. We're very visible, if you like. The bidder in town, they've got their own offices, they see their business, you know, we're all kind of out and about, if you like. We don't sort of shy away from, you know, asking consultants to consult for us or whatever. You know, I'm often referred to, where's that woman from the council? It's me. You know, and it happens, and you can't, you know, but you have to live with it. It's
out there.
Yeah. You know, it's the deal you do, isn't it? If you want people to sort of start changing.
Yeah, fab. Okay, we've got questions coming in, which is great. Do drop them in the Q&A or the chat. There's one here from Mike. It would be interested to know how many businesses sought to utilise the trial, which I think is the cargo e-cargo bikes, and what level of interest they had in the scheme. Can you tell us a little bit more about that, Claire?
Yeah, I can do. So we effectively, I think the spend was about 28 grand. So we Hurricane provide our normal bikes. They do some trailers, but we were very much kind of, we've got some really good local bike shops, so we really should use them. And also they can sort of do the servicing. So we went out and we said we want a selection of e-bikes. I mean, the white ones are huge, and you know, I was cycling it through town. We had an event with the NHS because they're quite keen to look at what we're doing, and obviously NHS workers, and not all of them drive, and various, so there's been lots of sort of add-ons to it. And about 3 people said, can I have an ice cream, love, as I was cycling around. No, but you know, so effectively what we did is we put an expression of interest out, and we said, you know, we're trialing this and we're looking for businesses who make deliveries, who perhaps are bringing stock in. You know, we've looked at, we know we've done a bit of freight study work. We need to do some sort of consolidation because we have a constant stream of white vans. 89% of commercial traffic is white vans coming in and out of the town centre. They're dropping off. It's Amazon, it's DPD. We have all of those. And they're all delivering to the same business, and we have 5 waste vehicles, 5 waste companies, all picking up waste in the town centre. Why have we got 5? And they all come on the same day, and they all stop charging. You know, so there's a lot to sort of go at, but we were kind of hoping in an ideal world to go for a consolidation model where it gets delivered out of town and then it comes in on e-bikes. That's an ideal word, what we'd like to do. We've done a little bit of work with Zadify, but we weren't sort of quite that big enough, or we didn't have the incentives of, you know, the charges you know, you're incentivized to go electric and in sort of some of the bigger towns and the, you know, low zones and things. So we weren't quite big enough. So we were like, well, what can we do? So we put an expression of interest out, and we're just starting that off now. And we've got some local businesses. We have a lot of independents, which is great. We've got a bar, we've got a thing, but interestingly, we've got a Domino's pizza. It was trading as, it's obviously a franchise, but you know, they want to deliver on e-cargo bikes. Brilliant. That's great. So you don't know where that could lead.
Yeah.
But also, you know, you've also got a local wine company, Tanners. They're looking at it. The NHS are saying, well, actually, we should, you know, we run vans from one part of the site to the other. Why are we, you know, so you don't know. I suppose you have to be quite flexible. You have to go in kind of almost not knowing this what the solution is going to be.
But I suppose that's where the trial comes in.
That's where the trial comes in.
Yeah, the opportunity for everyone to give it a go and see what's possible.
And in an ideal world, you know, those 240 people go out and buy an e-bike. Great. Or they might not. But we don't know, you know, and until you try it, you know, it's all right saying, oh, well, you could, you know, rent an e-bike for a week, or I used one when I was at Centre Parks. That's not the same as, you know, Wednesday, you know, a wet Wednesday in February. Am I going to really get off my bum, you know, get out of my car and go and cycle into town? So you need that sort of longer run at things. So yeah, so that's kind of, so that's where we kind of are with it, really. And we're going to sort of track their usage, and also sort of how they move around the town and things, which obviously informs other things, and then obviously outcomes for projects to, we've took this many delivery journeys off, and you know, that kind of thing, really.
Great, thank you. There's a question about getting further details about the case studies, Ruth, particularly the Caldecott case study. Are there contact details in the case studies? If not, we can organise that, I'm sure, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm sure we can. I'll put my email address in the chat. I don't mind if people want to contact me following the presentation, if there's anything they want to know more about or details. So if whoever it is drops me a line, then I'll speak to the case study and put you in touch. That's fine.
Great. Yeah, we know who it is. We just need to make sure we can share details. Yeah. So Kate, if you could, drop Ruth an email on that, that would be great. And lots of empathy for the haters, I think, coming through in the chat, and how having examples is helpful. I suppose, Ruth, some of the things you talked about should be good evidence to support the action that the types of action that Claire's taking. Is that, you know, are you finding that people are using it in that way to try and build the evidence and present it in a way that tries to convince those who aren't convinced yet? Say a bit about
yes.
That, Ruth.
You know.
Oh, sorry, Ruth. I was going to direct that to Ruth there. Sorry, Claire, and then we'll come across to you.
Ruth, sorry.
Go for it.
Yeah, no, I think we haven't done the evaluation toolkits and things before. We know there's you know, a lot of people out there that don't know where to begin to start to look at the impact of implementing kind of walking infrastructure and kind of the positive outcomes it will have. So it was pulled together for that as a resource, and we hope that people will be able to use it in that way. I think somebody asks in the presentation about car parking, and this is a big issue, isn't it, that people always come up with, you know, and I think the evidence in the Pedestrian Pound report and actually the evaluation toolkit can help answer some of those sort of I guess concerns that people might have before an intervention goes in, but I think there's lots of examples whereby when you reduce car parking, cars tend to disappear anyway, because people find other ways to get to that destination, and obviously the place becomes a much more vibrant place with more people walking and cycling. So over time, the footfall increases and the businesses see the benefits of that. And I think, like Claire said, making sort of positive ways of kind of introducing it through a walking festival and bringing the community with you means hopefully, you know, some of those people will be convinced of the benefits of a more
Yeah.
walkable place, rather than focusing on the reduction of cars or being unable to park cars in a certain space. We often get asked about disabled people needing access with cars, and we'd always say that there needs to be those drop-off points and places where disabled people are able to access any sort of town centre. That's really important, and I think we touched on it, and Claire did as well, the importance of consultation with all groups of people prior to any scheme going in, which would negate some of this negativity around, oh, they're taking my car parking spaces away. I don't think I answered your question, Jen, there, but
No,
Well,
I think that's really helpful.
what I would say on a practical basis is, if we took residents' car parking away, there would be a war. Sorry to be blunt. You can sort of dress it up or dress it down. If there's new development in the town centre, you can arguably say you doesn't need to have car parking. And we're sort of starting to think about that. We've got about a fifth of the town that's kind of up for regeneration. And that will play into what we do. And, it's not unacceptable. You could have a parking space on the other side of the river, but, and actually one of the flat complexes that's come forward for flats, you buy your car parking space, and not everyone's done it. So, things are changing on that part, but we're a medieval town, and there's some, a lot of the housing in our town centre isn't what you'd call in deprived areas. So there are people who've bought massive houses with car parking. And we've had to sort of say, rightly so, we're not taking away any residents' car parks. That's your car. You've bought a house with parking. We're not going to suddenly take that and put a parklet on it. But what we are going to do is rationalise the sort of public parking in the town centre. And you need to be considerate that, you'll be coming through areas of town where it's going to be, all being well, more people and cyclists than cars. So that is an ongoing struggle, and I don't want to sit here now and say we're going to take it out, because we're not, because one of our biggest issues is through traffic. It's not necessarily those 2,500, because I think our stat shows about 1,300 cars in the town centre from residents. So that's not our major issue, if you like. Our major issue is the people that just can't be bothered to walk a mile and a half, or don't want to park in our car parks that are literally over the river or a 10-minute walk into town. That's the behaviour sort of thing we're looking at. So you have to be very crucial, and this is why we've consulted. That's the sticky issue, the residents parking. Of all of these things that we're doing, I've literally stood in a consultation in a church, and 15 of them came in, and they may as well have come in with pitchforks. Where is she? And so as much as you want to change things, you've got to, new development, we will question parking, of course. But
pick your battles almost.
It's you pick your battles, and if I'm honest, I don't think that's one. And we're a political environment as well, and these people vote. So you've got to be very practical as well. Is how far you can go. I mean, I'm an officer, I'm apolitical and all of that, but I've got a portfolio holder. We've had a change of local leadership at Shropshire Council. They're very much more active travel focused. And the movement strategy, so we've seen a bit of a surge there. So things change all the time, but so I don't know if that sort of addresses some of the sort of questions that people had, but you've got to be practical. There's a dream world, there's a dream world, but we're not kind of in it there. But I mean, somebody's brought about bike security. It is a big deal. And people are put off coming into town. I mean, I'm and our e-bike schemes, they're not on our house insurances. That's all covered by hurricane. And it's pay as you, what is it, movement as a subscription or movement as a service. And it's great. If something goes wrong with it, you phone them up and they come out and repair it. Or if you fall off it like I did, they come and repair it. You know, but
Yeah.
but a lot of what we're doing is trying to do this in partnership. Do you know what I mean? When we went out to tender for the cycle storages, there was I think 2 or 3, and the ones we went with were like, well, what do you think you need? Well, we'll change it if that doesn't work. Or, you know, as opposed to buying something in that just plonks into Shrewsbury, we've had to be in a position where we go, well, hang on, that might not work, or they'll want to subscribe, or they might not want to subscribe. How do you change it? So we've tried to do, you know, tried to give us our ability to be quirky and a bit different, because we can't change, you know. And that's why I don't think it's kind of a Lego toolkit of, well, they did that in Shrewsbury, they did that there, they did that in there. You've got to kind of take it and go, well, would that work or would that not work?
Yeah.
If
So
I'm honest.
just that, I think that's really key, that, you know, the same thing doesn't work everywhere. But just the last question then, and relating back to a question, what's the best way to get things going in other towns? So if you were going to start somewhere, Claire, where would you start with this? And presumably
I would
engagement
start.
is a key part of that, but
Engagement is the key part. I think some measurements, some traffic, you know, what are your areas, or where do you think there's some, you know, get some data. You know, like I say, we're doing that Abbey Foregate one. Spoke to the guys at the pub, put a tail ram camera in, and luckily they were closing it for a war, the war, you know, and the road, and it basically showed cars, you know, people, pedestrians like that. How good's that for a bid? What can't speak, can't lie. We want to do this, and this is the evidence of how much more we can improve the pedestrians. So if I was going to start, I'd start with doing some measurements. You know, what is the situation? I'd start with a strategy, or if you've got hundreds of strategies, because everybody does, you know, pick a low hanging fruit. If I'm honest, pick a low hanging fruit, but certainly look at, you know, awards, funding, beg, steal or borrow. Just think of a different way of trying to, you know, rob Peter to pay Paul or whatever. But our partnership has been really, really good. You know, and that's worked really well, and it's 8 or 9 years now. And we work really hard at it. Don't always agree, of course you don't. But actually, overall, there is benefit to all 3 partners for being in the partnership, if you like. The bid, you know, the council, town council, you know, the bid can just go, yeah, we can procure that, and I'll buy it with my credit card. And I'm going, I don't even know that we've got a credit card anymore. I've got to go through, you know, that hoop and that procurement, and they're like, well, we can do that. So you kind of go to your strengths, and then there's certain funding streams that only us as a local authority can apply to, so we take the lead. So, you know, you kind of, you know, I'll put my email address in there as well, actually. Now we're
that
talking,
would be lovely. Yeah, thank you.
You know, if there are anything, but yeah, I'd just start by getting some benchmarks, because it works really well for bids. You know, brilliant. We're going to do this, we're going to increase this by 10%, or we're going to increase this by 20%.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, if you could drop your, brilliant, thank you. Put your email address in there, and Ruth has too. Thank you both very much for your time today and sharing your knowledge and expertise. That's been really helpful. It's always good to hear of lots of different ideas and ways of doing things. So lots of appreciation coming through in the chat as well. So thanks for that, and thanks for everybody really for joining us.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, brilliant. We'll be in touch with the next webinar when it's out in the autumn time. So look out for that. But yeah, thanks everyone for joining us, and we'll say goodbye.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
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 Bye. Bye.